G'day everyone, welcome to Footyology Final Siren. We are here to talk about tonight's Sydney Hawthorn game and surprise result, but a terrific win to the Hawks, just their third for this season in the end by a very comfortable 38 points over, it has to be said, a disappointing Sydney outfit. Great win for the Hawks. Sydney probably an ill-timed loss. They've got some tough games coming up, but we are here to break down the game, run through the details, most importantly of all, take your questions, your comments. We can talk about anything else on the football agenda, and it's been a pretty massive week on the footy news front with Nathan Buckley, of course, standing down as Collingwood coach after their game on Monday. More angst at Carlton, what's going to unfold there over the next few weeks. Adam Goods and the Hall of Fame. Anything you would like to put on the agenda, we are here for your service. And we means myself and my Footyology Final Siren co-host, Mark Fine. What'd you make of the Hawks tonight, Finey?
Who are they? Who's that team in brown and gold? Nothing like we've seen them play in recent weeks. They were quite outstanding. The new boy, John Newcomb, well, we can see why they salted him away. He was a welcome addition, especially at the SCG. Wouldn't he love to play there every week, that tackling machine? I reckon he'd get those numbers every week at the SCG, so that was impressive. I think when we heard Reeves out and Segler in, we knew Hawthorn would be a bit stronger, but of course they're playing for the future with the young ruckman, but he was a late withdrawal, and just the way the maybe very early, with Franklin firing very early, Sydney looked okay, but from that point on, your sort of ladder positions made you think, is this going to turn around? But the game didn't make you think that, did it, Rowan?
No, it didn't. They, look, Sydney had that little burst in the first quarter. That was the moment you thought it, but half time, the Hawks still 4 goals up, and that was after Sydney got a late goal just before the halftime siren, and then first goal in the third quarter got them within 3 goals. But after that, Hawthorn really controlled it. And in fact, Hawthorn ended up kicking, 5 of the last 6 goals of the game, Sydney only managing 2 in the entire second half. So well played, Hawks. And, I guess we've debated several times this year how bright their future is. I think we've all got question marks about the quality of those young players coming through. But some of them and some of the older hands really showed a bit tonight. So well played, Hawks. A lot to talk about, though, and start sending you questions through. I know people are pretty dirty on the umpiring tonight, so we can talk about that. I guess preparation's a bit of a question about this game. Hawthorn coming off a break, Sydney coming off 2 6-day breaks. I think that's right. Correct. And going into a bye, which I always worry about teams in their game before the bye, whether they're starting to look forward to the break. So we can put that on the agenda as well. Start sending you questions through. We will endeavour to get through them all. In the meantime, let's have a look at the quarter-by-quarter scores and the details. So even first quarter, the Hawks a goal up at that first break, 3-2 to 4-2. 2 goals to Sydney, but Hawthorn again stealing a bit of a march in that second term. Kazitsky and Wingard to open the scoring, and then a bracket of 3 goals in about 10 minutes. Phillips, Bruce and McAvoy. Phillips and Bruce from really tight angles. McAvoy finding some space up near goal as he continued to do. And the alarm bells were ringing by that stage. And then they really grounded out successfully in the second half. Their inside game was particularly good tonight. They won the contested ball pretty handsomely in the finish by 26. They won the clearance count. McAvoy and Segler dominant in the ruck. They won the hitouts by 16. Centre bounce clearances 14-9. And on a small ground like the SCG, that's always pretty important. So really, just about all the statistical categories, they dominated. I guess another key one actually was tackles inside 50. Their forward line pressure, Hawthorn tonight, was terrific. So 5 goals in the second half to the Hawks, just 2 for the Swans, one to Wicks in the third quarter, and the final goal of the game to Joel Amati. I think that's how you pronounce it, although the 7 commentators were going with Amity. I'm not taking that as gospel. Let's have a look at the goal kickers for the Hawks. 4 guys with each of 2, as Peter Landy would have put it. 2 to Kaczynski, 2 to Moore, 2 to Phillips, 2 to Bruce, singles to Segler, Morrison, Mitchell, Wingard, McAvoy and Shields. For the Swans, just the 1 multiple goal kicker. That was Amati with 2. Singles to Hayward, Franklin, Heaney, Florent and Wicks. The best, as nominated by your good self, Finey. Tom Mitchell, big game from him, 34 disposals tonight, and seemed to do a bit more damage with those touches. Second best for the Hawks, you had Chenkov Jath, who was sensational, I thought, in the defence, both his negating and his running and rebound ability. He's a real find for them. He's going to be a player well worth watching for a long time. Frost, really good in defence also, apart from that one brain snap when he gave away a really stupid 50. Segler, Shields and Newcomb, the first gamer. Pretty amazing week for him, of course, after being picked up in the mid-season draft, comes in and Jag's one of the best for the Hawks in his very first game. So well played, John Newcomb. For the Swans, you've gone with Parker, Rowbottom, Amati, Rampy, Kennedy and Mills. So with the exception of Amati, really the senior players standing up there, and some of those younger players a little bit missing in action this evening. Let's fire through some questions straight away. Okay, as I forecast, very first comment from Kyle Ross is hashtag free kick Hawthorn. Haven't seen that hashtag for a few years. It was popular when they were winning their flags. The free kick count, for what it was worth, 10 to Sydney. That's certainly not a lot. 26 to the Hawks. Now, do we need to say again here, it's not how many you get, it's where you get them, it's the ones they don't pay, etc., etc. I'll throw this one to you quickly, Finey. What do you think of the umpiring? Do you think the Swans copped the rough end of the pineapple?
A little bit. There were a couple of decisions. There was a block that should have been paid against Frost at the one time of the game where Sydney could have got back into it. For the first 20 minutes of the third quarter, there was only 1 goal scored, I think, or 15 minutes. Sydney had scored it, and they would have scored a second, but the block wasn't paid. That being said, the ball spilt to Parker, who missed a dribbler. He kicked it into the post. There was an intentional out of bounds that was very unfair against the Swans, especially in light of no others being paid almost for the rest of the night. But that being said, that's not the problem. The problem is that Heaney, Papley, Hickey, Lloyd, and arguably Franklin had their worst games of the season. And when they all do it on the same night, you're not going to win. I mean, Hickey's been great. He was bad, actually. He couldn't mark the ball and he got beaten in the centre. Papley was no good tonight. Heaney, terrible. Dropped a couple of marks. That's all I can remember him doing. Lloyd, nowhere near his normal self. I mean, that's put the umpires well down the list of priorities, Sydney supporters, and look at those performances in a game that really just should have been ticked off, head to the bye, and brace yourself for a crack at the top 4. Bad loss.
Yeah, it may come back to haunt them. I think their next 3 games, they've got Port Adelaide, Western Bulldogs.
West Coast Bulldogs.
And West Coast, yeah. So
you know what's interesting about their draw, Rowan?
What?
They've got 3 games at the SC, and that's assuming we go through as fixtured, and I think we might be heading back to Melbourne, the teams. If we do go as fixtured, they've got 3 games at the SCG and 4 at Marvel.
Oh, right, okay. We'll look up their record or if someone wants to message through their record at Marvel, because I think they've won their share there. All right, David Haley says, my mad Hawthorn mate sent me into the TOB today to put $20 on the Hawks, then gave me another $20 to back him myself. Well done, David, and your mate. Grant King says, win inside, win outside, separation, battle, game over. Well, they did. They won in all facets, really, didn't they? There wasn't a single area you could say the Swans really had it over them.
No, not tonight.
Their defence was particularly good, I thought. David's also asking about Geelong's win over Port last night. We will talk about that, David. We just put that one on hold. You can remind me later if we haven't got to it. We just want to talk about Sydney Hawthorn for a bit. Craig Williams says, Will Day, a big inclusion for the Hawks, absolute class player. He is classy, isn't he? And they have missed him.
And he should be suspended for 2 weeks.
Oh, the tackle or the head-high bump on.
Yeah. I mean, Wayne Carey's spot on, but we've said it before. It's not the result. That is such a dangerous bump on Wicks.
Yeah.
I mean, you just, what is the idea that we don't rub out the action, we just pray to God that it pans out all right? Sorry, Will Day's a really good player and spot on with that comment, but he should be rubbed out for two matches.
All right, Trav Dutka says, Newcomb, what a story. Beauty Nuke, 14 tackles, most in history on debut. He definitely needs a moustache, doesn't he? And a glass of Chinzano.
Yeah.
No, he was very impressive. I must say, I don't know a lot about him. His form with Box Hill apparently had been very good. Been getting some specialist coaching from Sam Mitchell. It's a pretty good guy to have you tutoring the finer points of midfield play. So yeah, look, good spot Hawks, and looks like, and that is an area. I mean, look, they need new blood everywhere, really. But midfield, I think, is the area they've looked particularly thin, haven't they? Particularly with, say, Warple struggling a bit this year. Yep. It's been really down to Mitchell and O'Meara. Actually, Mitchell's an interesting discussion because, you know, he has those games where he gets more than 34 disposals, and I barely notice him, but I really did notice him tonight. And I think, actually, you while you're having your say, Finey, I'll just look up Mitchell's stats. But
good, because that's what I want to ask. How many tackles did he have? Because he laid a couple of beauties.
Yeah, he had 7 tackles.
Yeah, good.
And 3 clearance wins as well. So
no, he was great.
Yeah, he seemed to do more damage and just seemed to be sort of in the coalface a little bit more than he has been in recent times, I think. So great game by him. Marty McLeod says on the umpiring, if you're first to the ball, you get the free kicks. Pretty much. One thing, I actually wrote a column during the week about, does holding the ball still exist? And there are a couple of more of them tonight, weren't there, where guys, for all the world, and in fact, one cost Papley a free kick, didn't he, at a pretty critical stage where he gave away one for abuse because he wasn't paid a holding the ball decision. I don't know what's going on there, but I think they're definitely not paying it enough. What do you think, Fine?
Well, there are some games where it's been paid, but generally, I just have this feeling that there's a KPI thing here, that the umpires are trying to ball, less stoppages is their KPI. That's what, it's a well umpired game if the ball keeps moving. It's a bit of self-policing. It's like the umpires that don't recall bad centre bounces. If you just give a guy, they give him too much time. It just feels unnatural and too many opportunities. Now, I know a free kick's not a bounce, but they've just got into their head that as long as the ball's moving, then things are okay. But it's how it moves, or even, just sometimes you always said this. I quote you here, where I say Rowan says the quickest cure is a very quick bounce. When the ball's not going anywhere, bloody blow the whistle and throw it up.
And that's the contradiction in this. And when people talk about turning into rugby, this is half the reason, that the longer you allow play to continue without paying a free kick, the more players you attract around the ball like bees to the honeypot. So I would argue very strongly that if you pay a holding the ball rather than letting it unfold more and more, you're going to clear the congestion quicker anyway. Look, the big thing for me with this is that the rule, and I did have a really good look at it, it is way too complicated. It's rule, I think, 18.6 in this year's rule book. There are 5 sub-clauses to that rule, and they cover things like, dragging the ball underneath, prior opportunity. It has made it a mess, and particularly with the amount of other stuff that umpires have to keep in mind now. And I wrote, when the deliberate against Cam Zurhaar was paid or insufficient intent, and we all just went, that is a shocker. I wondered then, is it a result of umpires having too much going through their heads? And when you look at the holding the ball rule, the way it's worded now, it absolutely underlines that argument. You don't need these 5. You can have the considerations. You don't need them formalised in a written rule. Anyone who gets to an elite level of umpiring knows instinctively how long's too long to be in possession and how long isn't. We do, and we don't read the rule book. So in a game where so much is paid by interpretation, allow them to exercise their judgment with that. You don't need 5 subclauses. You just need something like, if a player does not offload the ball whilst tackled within sufficient time, he is deemed to be in possession of the ball. And the umpire determines what's sufficient time. That's all you need, isn't it?
Yeah, with the prior opportunity element to it. And that's where things start to get moneyed. But prior opportunity, I think, is part of the game, and you have to just understand it. If a player has but there's 2 types of prior opportunity, and this is where the umpires are missing out. Prior opportunity is one based on the time between a player getting the ball and being tackled, or if the player chooses to take on the tackler, right? So that's prior opportunity. Yeah. The other prior opportunity, just not paid enough, is when the player is tackled instantaneously, so he doesn't have time, but his hands are free. Now, if his hands are free, there's your prior opportunity. But the players are well trained, unless they can get a disposal to a teammate, to bring it in themselves. Now
players are also trained to stand in the tackle and offload whilst they're being swung around in a tackle. So they don't deserve that amount of latitude. And my other point about prior opportunity is, when did we ever, prior to, last 20 years, ever hear that phrase prior opportunity? No one talked about it because it's part of the rule. Like, we didn't ever talk about prior opportunity like it was a written, formalised part of holding the ball. A guy got possession, and if he didn't really get a chance to get rid of it, the umpire wouldn't pay holding the ball. If he had some chance, he did. It's part of overcomplicating the rule book, in my view.
Yeah, the only prior opportunity I'd heard prior to the last 15, 20 years was with Kevin Sheedy, when he gave Michael Pryor a chance at Essendon.
Oh, very good. Now, Robin Masters says she can't see any comments coming through. Are there tech issues? Well, I'm seeing plenty here, Robin. So let us know if you are having issues and you can't get questions through, but we've certainly got plenty here at the moment. So we'll whip through a few. Richard Rule says Segler was huge tonight, turned Hawthorn's poor centre clearance fortunes around.
Yeah, I agree.
First, second and third efforts. Newcombe will be a beast in coming years.
Yep.
Peter Hartley, who I think is, I think that's my former maths teacher, my former Year 8 maths teacher. So g'day, Peter. Good to see you. You might want to throw me an equation. Peter says, should the 6 teams that had the bye last week have played each other this round? That's a decent question. I think there's so many variables now that go into the fixturing, and the other complication, of course, COVID, where, a lot of it's got to do with venue availability at all.
Yeah.
I mean, ideally, that should be the case, shouldn't it?
Yeah, but you're right, Rowan. This year, just if we can get a round completed, then hip, hip, hooray. So...
Yeah, well, it only occurred to me, I think, today, that because we've got the 7 games this round, we've only got the 5 games next week.
Yeah, that's right.
So Richmond West Coast was initially the Thursday night game, correct?
Yeah, that's right. There's no Thursday night game.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So, 5 games in a round, that takes us right back to 1908, doesn't
it? Yeah. Yeah, Johnson Von Trapp, our friend Andrew Burt in New York, says, been coming for weeks. Sydney are no good. Just took a team playing 4 wrestling to beat them. I think saying they're no good's a bit harsh, Andrew. I still think they'll make the 8.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a 2-game gap between the 8 and the rest. I think their
I
run home.
will say this.
I think their run home's pretty favourable too.
Yeah. After those 3 games that we mentioned, look, they play Essendon and St Kilda at Marvel, and I'll say this. when the score was 9-3 to 4-3, Hawthorn leading, and as you rightly pointed out, Rowan, a couple of great goals from the boundary by Bruce and
Phillips.
Yeah, that's right. I thought to myself, gee, if St Kilda kicked properly, they would have beaten them. You know, that's that's where St Kilda should have been. So there was a bit of writing on the wall, wasn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, we've said a number of times in the last few weeks that they've lost. When you go back to, say, the win they had over Richmond at the MCG, you know, they're not playing that brand of footy now. And the guys that were sort of driving a lot of that aren't even in the side now, are they? Like, so Warner didn't play this week. Golden didn't play. Who are some of the other?
Campbell,
another one who gave him good drive off half back. So, look, maybe Longmire has the idea of sort of pacing their season so they don't just sort of fizzle out towards the end, and they've still got plenty of juice in the tank come the end of the season.
Yeah,
I mean, that's what we've got to learn to. I know it's a we don't tend to do this, but we've got to try to learn not to overreact to
just single games.
Exactly. I mean, we're halfway through the season. You know, their form has been by and large very steady. The bye, they do have the bye next week, don't they? That I think will serve them very well.
I will say this, that early in the year, they were just absolutely superb, weren't they? Beating Richmond.
Yeah. Brisbane, round one.
Correct. So I'll say this, that I think we now not only have a good idea what the eight's going to be, I think we've got the haves and have-nots in the eights as well. I really feel that West Coast, Sydney and Port Adelaide have not put together the sort of seasons that will run them at a flag. But that's okay. We've got some other teams.
Yeah, so you think there's a gap between the top four and the bottom half of the eight?
Well, no, there's the top four,
top five,
and Richmond.
Bottom three.
Top four and Richmond, and then the three, West Coast, Sydney and Port Adelaide.
So right off the top of your head, who's going to be? What's your final top four?
Well, I mean, my grand final is. I just find it so weird to say because I told you this last week. This is a game that always reeked of mediocrity throughout my football life.
I've got Melbourne. Melbourne Richmond. Yeah.
I mean, it just was such a mediocre game of football. There were just certain games that piqued my interest. Even South Melbourne, North Melbourne, because the scoreboard looked so tidy. I really like the look of South Melbourne, North Melbourne. I like Fitzroy because they were game, and then for a while they were brilliant. But those co-tenants played such mediocre games. I mean,
look, feel free to send through your, let's say, your grand final opponents at this stage of the season. I'm sticking with mine, which is Richmond and the Western Bulldogs. And no disrespect to the Demons whatsoever. They have been clearly the best side of the first half year. But I will say this and climb on this hobby horse of mine once again for the sixth season. The pre-finals bye has completely and utterly changed the equation. Top four now means a lot less than it used to, unfortunately. Yep. In fact, it might even penalise some side. Who's it most likely to penalise, Finey? I reckon it's most likely to penalise a younger, more finals, inexperienced team that wins a qualifying final and then has to wait the best part of 3 weeks to play a preliminary.
Yeah, well, that's Melbourne you're pointing at.
And what happened last year, Finey? Port Adelaide and Brisbane, not particularly season finals teams.
Yep.
One qualifying finals. Yeah, so it's I hope it doesn't happen because Melbourne would be such a great story, but I fear it will.
To counter that, I've got to say, Rowan, I was really confident Melbourne would beat the Bulldogs, and I think Melbourne have got Bulldogs' number. Just the way they matched up.
Yeah.
I really think they match up well against them. Now,
perhaps they won't play them, though.
Well, that's the other thing. That doesn't necessarily mean that you can still not have a Bulldogs Richmond grand final. I understand that. I love what Melbourne's done at selection. I think I'm right in saying this, unless I read it wrong, because everybody's saying, do you play Wiedemann or Brown? Well, they've gone for Brown, but not Ben.
Yeah, Mitch.
That came from left field.
Yeah, well, I'm a Mitch Brown fan. I think he's a tremendously hard worker.
Yeah, nobody came up with that. You know, in all the discussion, somebody should have tweeted that. That's what Twitter's for. When they go, is it Wiedemann or Brown? It should be, is it Wiedemann, Brown, or Brown?
Yeah, and the biggest surprise was that they also considered Murray Wiedemann rather than Sam, or they would have, but he's no longer with us.
By the way, you mentioned Nathan Buckley.
Yep.
What a week it has been. And this guy has waited the best part of quarter of a century for vindication. But what a magnificent week for Tim Webster.
Oh, yeah, okay, all right, yeah. Quickly explain that to people.
Well, 25 years ago, when Nathan Buckley just started out as a Collingwood player, Sports Tonight, which Channel 10 ran, hosted by Tim Webster out of Sydney, who knows less about football than... Have a look around, for all the people watching, have a look around the room you're in, pick an inanimate object, and Webster knows less. I'm looking at a rocking horse here. And before the break, he came out with a very big comment. Big news after the break. We take up the story. Nathan Buckley of Collingwood has resigned. Comes back, straight face, doesn't apologise. Collingwood's Nathan Buckley has re-signed for 3 years.
I was watching that evening. I used to religiously watch Sports Tonight.
Yeah. Well, it took 25 years, but he's finally vindicated because Nathan Buckley has resigned.
Someone let Tim Webster know. All right, we've got a big backlog of comments now, so let's zip through them quickly. Really quick answers.
Yep.
Robert Rice, impressed with Dylan Moore, has been steadily improving and become a handy second small forward alongside Luke Bruce. I agree, Robert. He impressed me in that first game when they came back and beat Essendon. Every time I've seen Hawthorn, he's done at least something. I would have thought their best and fairest at the moment. He'd be going pretty well in it, I think. So he's a good addition.
He's all right. And also unlucky tonight. Didn't Morrison start off beautifully, only to hurt his hamstring?
Yeah, no, he's got. I don't mind him either. He's got a touch of class about him. Change of pace here. Leroy Jones asks, how many weeks will the Bangladeshian get for kicking and pulling the stumps out on 2 occasions? if you didn't say that, Finey, I saw it. Yeah. I saw one of them. That's one of the great all-time. We're talking cricket here. One of the all-time great dummy spits. I'm sure you'll see it plenty of times. Yeah. Michael Walker thinks that was one of the worst umpired games of the year. Michael Hanbury reckons Tom Brown's going to ask Clarko about the Magpies job. Farewell, Tom, if he does, given that he already answered that again today. Peter Andronopoulos says, I bought the Boys Club today, looking forward to reading it over the weekend. I'll just say this quickly. We did a special Footyology podcast, which went up this morning, interview with Michael Warner, the author of that book, an hour-long interview, and it was great. He was fantastic, really interesting discussion, not just about what's in the book, but a few issues behind it as well. So jump on footyology.com.au or your podcast platform. You will find it there, but well worth a listen. And the book, absolutely get the book. It is a fascinating read, even if you're not tremendously interested in AFL politics. One of the best footy books I've read. Trav Ducker, again, the bye was a huge influence as the Swans had zero energy and their entire game plan is based on effort at the contest. Austin Phillips says, best game Segler's played for a long time. Daniel Luth says, why doesn't Jason Bennett get more games to commentate? Was outstanding last night.
Yeah, he was good, wasn't he?
Couldn't agree more, Daniel. And if you want to have a look at my Twitter feed from last night, I did tweet, I tweeted something about Jason, and then someone sent me a tweet that had a pictorial representation of Jason Bennett and Luke Darcy calling the game. You know what the picture was? It was a guy sitting in the carriage of a roller coaster that went up and down and up and down. The up bits, obviously, when Jason was doing the calling. Ryan says Hardwick did a great job on Papley and Scrimshaw was great.
Yes. Yeah.
Don't think you had Hardwick in your best, did you?
No. The whole back line was good. I singled out Jath and Frost, but they worked brilliantly as a group.
LL asked, where was Goulden? I've lost a bit of track.
He's injured.
To be honest. He's injured, is he?
Yeah. I think a foot. I think, but out for 8 weeks.
8 weeks? Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, he's been out for 4 already, I think. But yeah, he was a serious injury.
Am I right in saying, I don't know why this sticks in my head. I could be about to make a complete fool of myself here, but I've got this idea he's got Turkish heritage.
Oh, Rowan, you know the great story. Oh, Errol Goulden will be one of my favourite players of all time.
Okay,
because of the interview that he did with Jared White. Pardon?
Oh, yeah, okay. Sorry, I do remember that. Yeah.
It was just great. So one last question, Errol. Your parents must be huge fans of the old silver screen. You're only the second Errol to play behind Errol Hutchison. He played in the time of Errol Flynn. Are your parents big Errol Flynn fans? And he looks, it's on the screen, and he looks back down the camera and he goes, no, we're Turkish. I'm of Turkish background, and Errol is a very common name in Turkey. It's got the extra R here as a bit of a nod to our Australian heritage, but it's very much a Turkish first name. Oh, he was. There's only been one Errol, but he played in the time of Errol Flynn. It was great. I loved it.
All right. Tom says, did the Hawks' pressure on the outside crack the idea of how to beat the Swans? Well, one thing I noticed was they certainly clogged up the middle of the ground. There are a number of times the Swans were going forward and they'd get into trouble with their handball. They didn't seem to have anywhere to go and handballed into traffic. And I think how you defend against them in terms of positioning, I think, is pretty important as well as just having a good crack on the inside.
You know what they did, which no other team seemed to bother doing? They put a clamp on Jake Lloyd.
Yeah, no, that was certainly one of his least productive games. In fact, he always does. He ended up with 30 disposals. Yeah,
you've got to subtract the behinds the other team have because he takes every kick in and gets a possession for it.
All right, Johnson Von Trapp again. Why did we get rid of Tom Phillips? Mind-boggling. Well, you know the answer to that, Johnson. Salary cap. LL says Will Day will be our bot-like utility. He's quite tall, isn't he?
Yeah, he's very good. Very good.
He also asked, "What are you smoking, Finey?" I think that's in reference to some other comment you made, but
yeah, about Will Day getting 2 weeks, and he deserves to get 2 weeks.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry, he deserves it.
All right, and he's smoking crack, by the way. Will Day copped the hit. He didn't do the hit.
Oh, it was the other way around. Did he? Was it?
What are you smoking for?
Hang on. I don't think. Is that right?
Wicks on Day. Yeah, I think that is. Yeah, no, that is right. It's just popped into my head.
Was it Wicks on Day?
Yeah, Day made contact with a Sydney player and then turned back, and Wicks met him coming the other way. Unless you think Wicks.
No, I think Will Day got Wicks high.
I don't think you're right. It was near the cameras on the boundary line closest to the camera. Unless you're arguing, of course, that Will Day's head made contact with Sam Wicks's upper regions. Anyway, let's get on with it.
Hey, Damon, could you have a look at that incident if they've got it up?
No, well, we've got several comments saying it was Day that copped the bump.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
No, I thought it was Wicks and copped it.
Well, it's all right. Apology accepted. And now past that spliff. Barefoot Punter says O'Meara might get cited for his hit on Haywood, I think it was too.
No, that was a ricochet, I reckon, more than anything else.
I don't remember that one.
O'Meara had the ball. No, he'll be all right.
Johnson again. I reckon Horse is coming to the end of his time as coach of the Swans. Not with you on that one, Andrew. I think he's got him up and going again. And he's done it. I mean, he's overseen what's been a pretty quick recasting of that side. So, they've changed the way, well, certainly for the first 6 weeks of the season, they changed the brand of footy they were playing.
No, he's fine.
I might have said that a year ago, maybe, but I reckon he's sort of got his second coaching wind almost.
Yeah, I will ask one question about Clarkson and Longmire. Why were they both coaching in the dark tonight?
It's just those boxes are very poorly lit. If several people did observe that. Wild Panda reckons I'm channeling Gladys Berejiklian with my sugar-free Coke. Am I a closet Liberal voter? No. Did you see that?
I thought you're channeling Russell Holmesby.
Well, with a beard. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
You know what? I was actually going to shave it off, but it's now at the length where shaving it is going to take me half an hour, and I didn't have half an hour, so I've gone with it again. I hate it. Looks terrible.
Very white.
Yeah, I know. Did you see the shot of Gladys preparing, in inverted commas, for the State of Origin game? It was the most staged photo you've ever seen. It was taken at about 2 p.m.
Yep.
And she's wearing some coat and a Blues beanie, and she's standing there with her back to the camera, holding an unopened can of Coke No Sugar. But it was a really weird pose. It was sort of like, remember that ad for this man's a dentist, so we can't show you his face on TV.
Yeah. Rob.
Rob, that's it. Yeah, well done. I knew you'd remember that. All right, Matthew Price says, I thought the difference tonight was that the Hawks were harder at the ball than they have been all year. Everything else flowed from there. First hands on the ball equals more scoring shots, same as it has been forever. Quick comment on that, Finey.
Well, I will say this, that the SCG does bring that form of football into all teams' realm of capability. What I'm saying is that Hawthorn were just getting separated at the MCG and at Marvel. The young players, they just weren't able to create much pressure on opponents. But the one thing about playing at the SCG, which I think Clarko would have relished, which is why they might have had that boxing session on the Monday, is that it is close quarter football. You are thrust into the role of players players are brought into action rather than at other grounds. So maybe Clarko, as a brilliant coach, was preparing for that all week, and that is why we had the Monday boxing session.
I reckon I'm guilty of this too. I reckon sometimes we overstate the size of the ground thing, because when you actually have a look at a lot of these grounds, it's really not that big a difference.
Yeah, but the other thing is that the ball, and I noticed this from the Collingwood game on, for some reason the SCG during winter, they don't cut the grass very fine. You know, that Collingwood game was such a slog. It's a slower moving game to me. The ball, the smaller ground, slower moving, more like old football, more contests. Players are forced to play contested football, and Hawthorn were up for the battle. Maybe Sydney were fatigued. Hawthorn with the break and that week emphasising contact and physicality. I know it's not a word. Seemed right up for it. Well done, Alistair Clarkson.
Yeah, I reckon there's a bit dewier up there too, because it's a bit more humid. I don't know.
Yeah. It's not a zip. It's certainly no Marvel, and
well, unless it's dewier than Marvel for obvious reasons.
Yeah, and unless it's raining, the MCG is a big, fast game of football as well, with those big, wide wings, and young teams can get lost there. You know, the fact that Richmond can apply such a balance and really constrict teams at the MCG is testimony to years of working on it.
Right, now, Finey, this is sort of like the news, we're getting a lot of comments through about our physical appearance, disturbingly. Freddie Ferret seems to think I've gone one shade darker. Not the case, Freddie, I just haven't washed it. And the lighting's pretty poor. It's just, but I don't know, my facial hair is completely white. My head hair is not. That's about all I can say. Pie's only a few games out of the 8. Look out, says Johnson.
Robert Harvey.
Nice try. Robert Harvey's coach, yeah. Okay, a few people wanting to talk about the Cats and Port Adelaide.
Yep.
Very, very, very impressive performance. I would say this is a significantly better team than last year. It's pretty obvious, isn't it? In fact, I said, Finey, you can take issue with this, but I reckon it's the most dynamic forward setup they've had since the Malcolm Blythe era. And someone came back, and fair point, they said to me, well, what about 07, 09? You had You had Hawkins, Mooney, Chapman, Johnson. So I guess I probably meant in the key positions. I will certainly take Hawkins and Cameron over Hawkins and Mooney, with all due respect to Moons. Apologies if you're watching this, but they are both so mobile. And actually, the one thing that struck me most, Finey, interested in your comment on this, in the last quarter, Tom Jonas was out on his feet, and it was half the reason he got pinged holding the ball. He didn't even have enough energy to sort of do that furious, I'm trying to get rid of the ball thing. And Alir was completely and utterly cooked. And that was the extent to which Cameron and Hawkins had run them up and down the park. And they were still going at the end. So, we know their defence is very good. We know their midfield's very reliable and physically strong. And their forward setup, it hasn't looked great at times, but they've never had trouble generating scores. But I haven't checked this, but surely they're scoring at a higher clip now than they have for some time, because it's just dynamic with Hawkins, Cameron, and Gary Rowan playing some of the best footy of his career.
Gary Rowan, best football he's ever played, because his issue has been consistency. He is at the height of his powers, or as the English like to say, and I love this expression, he's currently in his pomp. Now, Jeremy Cameron just might be, we will learn, an unlucky footballer, underrated in his time, because being part of that forward line of GWS with Patton, with Boyd, with all, they just never quite understood that forward line, did they? He's come down to Geelong. People talk about Geelong's different brand of football, the slow one and the fast one. Now, I really believe that players tripping the ball around will always do that. And Paddy Dangerfield backed it up by a very interesting post-match interview, saying we don't plan for it, just how things unfold. They will pass the ball around often as a sort of abrogating responsibility, because nothing's happening ahead of them. And they're told not to lose possession. Cameron has worked so brilliantly with Hawkins, and he's so fit and he runs to such brilliant places, either taking, as you pointed out, his opponent on horrible tours of duty that they can't handle, or sometimes you see him in the pocket behind Hawkins, and sometimes you see him well ahead of Hawkins. He seems to demand that the ball moves quickly. And I believe that's why, ever since he's been in the team, and the players have looked up and seen this wonderful option of the moving Cameron and moving Hawkins, let alone Rowan, who moves. But I think it's Jeremy Cameron that's got them all in such a dynamic state that players are not hatching the ball. You're only going to kick sideways if there's nothing good ahead, correct? You're always going to want to go forwards. And they're giving so many good options that the players are now learning and trusting that you know what the great kick is? And Dermot used to say this. He used to say, I don't want players kicking the ball trying to hit me on the chest. That is too difficult. Just give me a kick where I'm a 60-40 chance, because the kick is placed in such a position that I'm slightly advantaged. And I think that they know that if they do that with Cameron and Hawkins, more often than not, they'll get the result.
Yeah, but I think another key is also that, we talk about forwards wanting quick, clean delivery, and it gets hard for them when the ball gets bombed in. But I think those are two key forwards that can get the ball out in front of them on the lead, or take a big, strong contested
that's right.
mark.
So they can lead, which demands the ball, or that 60-40 kick.
Yeah.
That kick it up to me, but if you kick it and, give me some space to run into, even against a good opponent, I'll back myself, and I think the players are doing that. Yeah, look, Geelong could be the ace in the pack, couldn't they? I'll say this. Richmond, we trust. In Richmond, we trust. Like an American coin. Melbourne, one loss by 1 point. Pretty good, eh? Western Bulldogs, you've still got great faith in, and I don't disrespect, because at their best, they have been irresistible, haven't they, that midfield, when moving correctly?
Yeah.
And the Bont can win games on his own. Geelong, now the best forward line, I'll say this.
Yeah, go on.
This is the best finals series in prospect. We don't have Richmond dominating, Hawthorn dominating. We don't even two teams dominating. I really believe that we're on the cusp of some very, very exciting football, the likes of which I don't think we've seen much in my life. Go back to Essendon, Hawthorn, Carlton. Yeah, those, the 80s, that was great. We had Essendon, Hawthorn, Carlton, Richmond. I remember Fitzroy were bloody brilliant and couldn't make a grand final. North Melbourne. Those were great times because they were great teams. I think we've got 4 or 5 really good, great teams. It's very exciting.
No question about that. All right, we're going to we've got a significant backlog now. I'm going to read out. I did ask people to send through their grand final matchups. So
okay, good.
Geelong, Melbourne, Geelong, Brisbane, Melbourne, Richmond, says Ronnie Isco. Who else we got? Robert Marshall reckons D's v Cats. We've got some comments on Tim Webster, who also, yes, I do remember this, Leroy, also called Plugger Plunger.
Plunger Lockett. Channel 10. Mark Leckrus. Remember when he kicked 10 goals against Essendon?
Who was that?
That wasn't Essendon. That was just on the late news.
Leckrus, yeah.
Mark Leckrus.
Johnson again, does the Mick Warner interview spoil the book? No. Absolutely not, because there's so much detail in it. There's so many interviews, and the stuff he writes about, about anyway. I mean, it's the tanking stuff, it's the drug scandal stuff, but it's how much wheeling and dealing went on behind the scenes, and it's also having it sort of condensed into one overarching narrative rather than. One of the things we did talk about in the interview, and we clipped it up separately today if you want to have a look on my Twitter feed, but one of the things that Mick was sort of scratching his head about, and same with us, is why don't these sorts of stories get followed up? And it's sort of like, well, the Essendon drug thing did go on for literally years, but say the tanking stuff, once the AFL comes out with some pretty shonky looking resolution, it's sort of like everyone goes, okay, next, move on.
Oh, because let's be fair, the main thing that we're interested in are the games. So these stories can get swallowed up by the sport itself, which I guess is a good thing, isn't it?
Yeah, in the one perspective, but you can do both. And even so, I would argue, let's not get bogged down in this, but even some of the people whose jobs are supposed to be sussing out those stories only ever come up with one sort of story. And in this grab, I mean, you named Caroline Wilson, and I do tend to agree with
that
you.
Spoiler alert, if people don't want to know the end of the book, it was Caroline Wilson with a candlestick in the conservatory.
Yeah. How do you win Cluedo again? I've forgotten. You guess you guess the person, the implement, and the room.
Yeah, that's right. And I can give you all the, Professor Plum with a lead pipe.
Please don't.
But I've never played it. I only know that as a trivia, as a sort of a being part of trivia teams. But I've never had Cluedo. I've never played it. I've never opened.
It's a good game.
I haven't.
All right. Okay, we've got to move on here. I've got a question from Cuthbert Smythe, and it's dated around April 15th, 1975. What do you think of the new centre square? No, I'm just kidding. All right,
it's a diamond.
I need to ask this one. Stephen Ackroyd, I know, sorry, apologies, Stephen. I saw you ask this on my Facebook page, I think, but Stephen very upset about Gary Lyons' commentary of the St Kilda Sydney game, specifically his going very hard on Max King, which I think he did about 2 weeks.
They got stuck into him.
Well, okay, your thoughts on it, Finey?
Yeah, they just got stuck into Max King, and I've
got
to say,
why?
Well, he's got to make more contests, etc., etc. They didn't realise he'd hurt his back, and I've got to say, a couple of weeks earlier, the commentator that we both rate the best, and I know, and I would, I'd open the car door for him. I'd let him go in the house first. he's that good a bloke. Hutto. Out of nowhere, he's just getting stuck into him for his marking, let alone everybody getting stuck into him for his kicking. Look, Max King is 20-odd games into a career. I thought big, tall, 6'9" forwards get given a bit of time. I reckon we're still waiting for bloody Tom
Okay,
Lynch.
I'll tell you why it happened and why it happens. Because there is so much pressure on media commentators now to be controversial and outspoken. They know that it's saying something quotable that will create attention on social media and maybe be picked up by other media. And I think even subconsciously, a lot of these guys now are just sort of raising or lowering the bar, if you like, and going harder and harder. And
that St Kilda Sydney game, Rowan, I'm going to exploit the deletive here. This is while the game, St Kilda's still in the
was
game.
Was that deliberate? I don't think you said it to exploit the deletive.
Yeah, delete the expletive. I just yelled out at one point, will you shut the F up? Jonathan Brown had a comment about everything. So there's two commentators. There were two commentators for some reason and two special comments people, one of which, Jonathan Brown, has to talk constantly. It's not special, John, if you're saying it every second, which meant when Lyon could get a word in and had to be controversial. Of course, some of the stuff Jonathan Brown says is just complete, it's wrong. He's an idiot. I'm sorry. You want to be a special comments person, then don't come up with comments like, Jack Steele did a good job while Geary was injured. He goes back to being vice-captain now. No, he's co-captain, you twat. Look, the fact is that it was just unbearable. And I think Gary Lyon, when he finally was able to get a word in edgewise, decided to go the controversial route to be more memorable because Jonathan Brown was jumping on everything.
Well, you're backing up what I'm saying, aren't you? Okay, I don't want to go on and on and on about this, but here's my other...
can I just give you one thing, please? This was so good.
Yeah.
This was Jonathan Brown's moment of brilliance because we know that the main story in the last quarter was Higgins.
Yeah.
So you know what he came up with? Look, he's struggled all year. He's kicked 11 goals, 16. And today he's kicked 1 goal, 5. That was before his last point. But then he had to correct himself. He goes, oh, no, he's kicked 16 goals, 7 in 11 games. He'd read the columns wrong.
Yeah.
So he'd read 11, 16. It was games, goals. He came into that game with 16, 7. But he read the wrong columns.
All right. I'm going to do this very quickly. Here's my other theory about the state of commentary, that the punters are ahead of the people that do the programming in this respect, that the people that do the programming still think that the audience is absolutely in awe of these former players everywhere across the media, and that anything they say, we will be latching onto and go, oh, Brownie said this or Gaz said this.
Yeah.
We're not, because there's too many of you. Too many of you are inarticulate and don't do your homework, and we're long past being awestruck by it. But we're past that. The programmers aren't. In fact, they have ramped it up to the point, and I've really noticed this, particularly on Fox Footy, they will get the non-players, the Ralphies and these people, and even in a call, Channel 7 did it tonight with BT. They are constantly throwing questions to the comments guys, even during play. So at one stage tonight, during a passage of play, we had BT asking Carey who was the better player, Gary Ablett Sr. or Buddy Franklin. And Carey didn't want to answer, and BT, and it was sort of like, oh, this is, wow, Carey's going to say, I go for this player over that player. Not only sort of not understanding that we don't give a shit, but also whilst the play was going on, they don't get it. I'm telling you, if you're anyone from Channel 7 or Fox Footy who works in programming is watching this, ring me up, talk to me about it. Happy to talk to you about it. But you guys are off the pace. That is not what the punters want. They want clear, accurate, concise commentary, a la Jason Bennett, Adam Papalia. They want special comments guys who don't wrap it up in jargon, who will give you the benefit of their expertise, but put it in a way we can understand, a la Jason Dunstall. That's what they want. They don't want matiness. They don't want banter. They don't want, Wayne Carey says this player's better than that player. And they particularly don't want it during the effing game.
Was Dermot one of the special comments been on Thursday night?
Last night, you mean?
Yeah.
No, because it was a Channel 7 game. It was... just trying to remember. I mean, tonight BT was throwing stuff to Wayne Carey and Luke Hodge.
Yeah.
Last night, no, it was definitely a Channel 7 game.
Okay.
So it wouldn't have been Dirk.
Yeah. Because one of the special comments people said, when somebody had a shot of goal and he said, here, you got to start it at the left. You got to start it out left. He goes, I always started it out left when kicking for goal, except he never played it at Adelaide Oval, whoever it was.
Oh, you can't remember. Yeah, okay.
Whoever it was too old to play it at Adelaide Oval's only been used in the last, 9 years or something?
Yeah, since 2014, I think. Well, they had one game there and then, yeah. All right, bit of support for our thoughts on the commentary, but this is because I wanted to ask you, I want to have a discussion about this. So Ben Healy says, did you see Maguire, Dermot and David King being awfully condescending towards Tom Morris post-game last night? It was awful viewing. Yes, Ben, I did, and I found it absolutely cringeworthy, and it was classic we're former players, you're the measly, puny private school boy.
Yeah.
I hated it. I hated it, and...
But Eddie can be part of that because I'm from Broady.
Correct. Because he's good mates with Derm and blah blah, and he's Eddie. It was. But I'll tell you what else. That was in regards to a discussion, and this really pissed me off because Finey, you went on last week about concussion and about how players are still glorifying hits and not taking concussion seriously. I think it was a perfect example. So we had this report which Tom Morris gave about Mitch Lewis being knocked out at training in a boxing bout, and he had been ruled out of the game and had to be replaced. Yep. And Eddie and Derm and David King, they were grilling Tom about who was it, and they were making out like whoever it was going to be some sort of hero because he was like Rocky, knocked out one of his teammates. And I know they thought it was all good fun or whatever, but the guy's been concussed. He's missed a game. He might miss 2 games. If we're serious about concussion, this is exactly what you were talking about, Finey. If we're serious about concussion, you can't then turn around and start pissing yourself laughing because a guy gets knocked out.
Yeah, look, the circumstances of that are different in that I didn't see it. We weren't at training. I think
you're missing what I'm saying. It doesn't matter that we didn't see.
I understand. There's nothing funny about it. And you're right. We need to take these matters seriously. The point I was taking up is the attitude by Wayne Carey in ticking off on a player, making another player earn it when he goes for the mark, resonates in all forms of football. Because when a player's caught behind at lower levels, you see it all the time, make them earn it. That's what Duck says.
Yeah.
Well, this doesn't have that same knock-on effect, but it does trivialise something that we need to understand, and I'll say it again, has a terrible impact potentially on players and people's lives post-football. So it doesn't just put individuals at jeopardy, it puts the sport at jeopardy. If we don't take it seriously, it could go. Because I promise you, in 2021, if Aussie rules didn't exist and somebody came up with that game, no one would play it.
Okay,
it'd be considered too dangerous. So we have to understand the precious nature of the sport and take everything above the shoulders with great gravitas.
Yeah, and that means not...
I agree.
Yeah. Not making a joke about it, not glorifying... Yep. It wasn't... Yeah, it was the fact that they now considered Jacob Kaczynski some sort of hero because he'd knocked out a teammate at training. And in fact, someone's just reminded me here, Dan Fancher, actually. Thanks, Dan. they did it again tonight, straight after the game. You had they interviewed Sam Frost, and it was Gary Lyon, Jonathan Brown, Nick Rewald, and they did it again. They asked him whether it was Kaczynski, and he conceded it was. And it was sort of like, he's a goer. Like that is cringeworthy. And I'll tell you what, I'm absolutely confident that we're right in saying this, that the audience is past that. That's like 20 years old, that sort of crap.
I know. No, I think the audience still can be influenced by that. And the one line that Eddie said that just doesn't sit with me last night was, Kaczynski, his cousin used to get knocked out. Now he knocks them out.
That was Eddie. Eddie said that.
Yeah, I'm saying Eddie said that.
Yeah. So, we could talk about this for a long time, but like seriously, I've got to say, I've worked with a lot of former players in the media, and I like most of them, and I think most of them have something to offer. But seriously, get your heads out of your ass, a few of you, and step into the 21st century. Hello, like seriously.
I didn't tweet about this because I tweeted something a few weeks ago about Eddie, and it got a big response. And I'm not going to be tweeting about Eddie every second minute. Eddie said something extraordinary last night. I don't know if you picked up on it. Well, he decided to break the news about Ange Postecoglou getting the job at Celtic, news that had been around for 18 hours, but that's okay. And then he sort of muttered, they were talking about coaches and whatever, getting coaches. He goes, don't talk to me about coaches. I have got to find a coach.
Did you really?
Yeah. He said, I've got to go out and find a coach now. No, you don't, mate.
Okay, well, who wouldn't believe him when he says he's going to have absolutely no influence over Jeff Brown's ticket?
He doesn't even. He can't control the influence he has over himself, let alone other people.
Okay, so back to our theme about the book, The Boys Club.
Yep.
What we're just talking about is, this is one of the symptoms of the Boys Club. That is, AFL has become this little bubble of mates who look after each other and scratch each other's back, and they are so cocooned and immune to influence from, newer cultures, newer interest groups, new people coming to the game. They have a very condescending, patronising sort of view towards the punters. And we wonder why AFL decision-making is often so seemingly, divorced from what our reality is. Well, that's why, because they don't know what the real world's like now. And I tell you, boys, if you are listening, the real world now, even in football, vis-a-vis the audience, it's not now what it was like in 2000. It's not.
Rowan, thinking about the book and everything with the discussion with Mick, I've come to this understanding that probably from the day Dimitri took over the job, because Wayne Jackson was very different. He was old school and by his own admission, not a negotiator and not a big businessman. But from Andrew Dimitri's time on, and not just Andrew, but many, many, many others at the AFL, they realised that the vast opportunities that come with the true commercialisation of a sport that is a religion in parts of Australia, it is so ingrained in life that converting that passion into big bucks, a lot of what they've done is excused because of their great financial success. I want to point out that in 1893 or 90, around that time, maybe 1895 even, South Melbourne hosted Geelong. Geelong had just relinquished their champion, Pete Burns, who ended up at South Melbourne. He was supposed to play for Essendon, but a South Melbourne official got on the train that he caught to Windy Hill and signed him for South Melbourne. He was the best player in the land. At that game at the South Melbourne Cricket Ground, crammed into that ground was estimated to be 37,000 people. And outside the ground, unable to get in, another 25 to 30,000 people. 1 in 3 Melburnians were at that game. So to sit here 125 years later and say, we're geniuses because we've made, all this money off a game. Yeah, they haven't done it off bloody baseball. They've done it off a game that has, for almost since it has existed, been key to life in certainly Victoria. When they say it's a religion, Rowan, it is for me. I'm not religious, but I am quasi-religious about footy, about St Kilda. And big deal, because all that they've done, and the book will bear this out, and it must be read, is in commercialising it to its full potential. Well done. They have stuck their hands in the trough. They've such. I'm not saying that any individual, I'm not naming them, but hands have been put in the till via huge wages. And just, you know what? If you know them and if you're part of it, you don't have, you're set for life. This is, forget about going to uni and becoming a doctor or whatever. I think it's well stated in the book.
Okay, just let me chip in there, which is why people don't question it, even people in the media, because there are people in the media that are looked after. And the only ones that are prepared to challenge it are people like Mick Warner, who end up being ostracised as a result. As Russell we Gilbert, probably now will be.
You know what Gilbo always says? It's only a rort if you're not part of it.
Yeah.
And to be honest, Mick Warner is a great journalist and probably has the fallback of knowing, because he didn't start as a footy journo, that if he's completely ostracised by the football world, which he may well be after this book, that there are other forms, he can head into other fields with his ability as a journalist and continue to write. Maybe the Herald Sun have guaranteed him that. I don't know. He could move from football to something else. But, it's, I've got to say, there's not many of you, Ro, and you're somebody who was a leading football writer at a major newspaper who hasn't accommodated the AFL's management style to best feather your own nest. I think most of the people you've worked with have understood how to play the game. You've understood it, but you haven't done it.
Well, it's not my style,
No, I can think of a few of you. Mick Davis.
Yeah.
You.
And our motivations are different. Our motivations, my motivation for doing what I do has always been that I love footy, and being a journalist and writing about it and talking about it was, in a way, a means to an end. I think for most people, it's the other way around.
Yeah, but you would be considered an agitator. Look where it's got you, working at midnight on Friday night with me on Zoom. I mean,
speaking of which, we should do the tips, because we thought we might have a shorter show tonight, and it's going to be longer. But it's anyway. A lot of people saying they like the chat, so no, thanks, guys. It's interesting stuff. I think we'll probably be talking about it a bit more when we're both looking for other things to talk about, because we're not allowed admission to AFL football anymore. All right, we got some games we've got to tip. Now, Finey, have you got a wild and wacky tipping device for us to work with?
I got a beauty. I always come up with beauties.
Okay.
It's a long weekend of football, isn't it?
It is. So,
counterintuitively, on the long weekend, I'm asking you for the team you're tipping to give me a player, past or present, with a 3-letter surname.
What's that going to do with the long weekend?
It's counterintuitive. It's the opposite. It's short names for a long weekend.
Okay, 3-letter surname. Okay, so if you want to join in this, give us your tip for whatever game we're talking about. Must be a 3-letter surname.
Past or present.
Past or present. Okay, so first game on the menu tomorrow is, it's a ripper. It is Fremantle versus Gold Coast. No, I really mean that. In Perth, and it is 4:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And, neck and neck in terms of the odds for this one.
Yep.
No, I won't say it because they're not sponsoring this yet, but the odds are pretty even.
Yep.
If that makes sense. So, who are you going with, Finey?
Well, I could name the coach of the team I'm tipping, interestingly enough. That's That's something a bit different for a three-letter surname. But I'm going to go for Joshua Toy.
Okay, very good. He's on Twitter, Josh Toy. I'm sorry, Josh, if you're watching. I can't remember what you're doing now, but he's a good man, Josh. Had plenty of interactions with him on Twitter. So Finey going for the Gold Coast. All right, I'm going with Cox.
Big Brendan Cox.
Big Brendan Cox.
Well, so that's why I'm not going for them, because he's out.
Well, you said past or present. He's still.
I'm saying it's player. A good tip. You're going for Freo, but he's one of the reasons why I'm tipping Gold Coast. His absence is meaningful.
All right, so I'll give you some other. Shane Donahue, good at how are you, Shane? Shane says this is the best post-game footyology of the year, so thanks. Shane's gone with Uze.
Oh, hang on, we haven't got to that game yet.
Oh yeah, sorry.
L.
Uze's
great, but that's
good friend Elle McBell is on the line, and she's gone with Day or May.
Correct, Stephen May or Sam Day.
And Leroy Jones has given it as a tip for last night, Boz.
Yeah, you see, tonight, if you tipped Hawthorn, there are so many Hawks. But you know who my tip was for tonight?
What?
Pat Foy.
Oh, yes, very good. And what's he best remembered for, Finey?
John Burke.
Yeah. So for those
he's
playing
done
home,
well, the kid.
Pat Foy was the player who John Burke kicked, which led to the report by umpire Phil Waite, which led to John Burke decking or pushing over Phil Waite.
Which led to Slug Jordan saying he's done well.
Yeah. Actually, in fairness, like he got 10 years, didn't he? He didn't actually punch the umpire, he pushed him.
But see, I used to see John Burke once a year at a race. Beaver organised, had a big day at Caulfield Guineas. You know, it was a great punting day.
Yeah.
And John Burke's a St Kilda supporter. He is such a polite, first of all, successcul.
We've lost you. No, did you just touch your phone?
Well, because when you
get excited,
get down to 20% power.
Yeah.
But successful in the building game, just a polite, quiet with kids. You couldn't meet a nicer bloke. And I know they say that all the time, but if people think he's some ruffian, far from it. And very, very sort of exemplary giant of well-spoken and well-mannered.
Yeah. I've sat next to him.
Unlike me. I'm the thug there.
I sat next to him at a footy once, and the first thing I said to him was, "No, I'm not going to do it to you." And he said, "Thanks." I didn't even say what I meant, but he knew. All right, let's get on with it. So I'm going for Fremantle. Finey's going for Gold Coast. Next game is 7:25 in Cairns, and it is St Kilda playing Adelaide. My turn to tip first.
Yeah.
Oh boy. All right, come on, people. I need your suggestions.
So can I do my tip?
Yeah, go on.
Scott Lee.
Very good.
And the only other one I could think of was a St Kilda player who was on the Adelaide list but never played a game with the same surname.
Oh, Harper's got a good St Kilda tip. Unfortunately, I don't want to tip them. His St Kilda tip is Farron Ray.
All right.
Okay, Finey, Elle McBell, she's a very reliable source, tells us that Lee is the only three-letter player they've ever had.
Yeah, I'm saying, but the Tom Lee that played for St Kilda was on the Adelaide list for 2 years.
Okay, but what am I supposed to do here?
Just say Lee.
Lee. All right.
All right. But so can I give you a few Saints?
Yeah, quick.
Okay. Barry Mao, Ernie Fu, Brian Key. These are all serious players. Ron Mee, M-E-E, Graham Ricks. No, who was the Ricks from Collingwood? He never played he was a ruckman who played for us. There was Ricks, there was Ray, there was... Anyhow, we'll move on because I might use a guy who played for St Kilda for another.
Please tell me that Barry Mao's nickname was Chairman.
MAU, I don't know. Ron Key was a decent player. Ernie Foo, FOO.
All right. No, that's 4 letters.
What?
Super Coach Edge. No, Gill. Nick Gill.
Yeah, Nick Gill.
I don't think it was 1L. Super Coach Edge. All right, next game. So, anyway, we're both tipping Adelaide.
Yep.
God, I hate this AFL app. It refreshes literally every 10 seconds. All right, next game, Sunday, Blundstone Arena, 3:20 p.m. It is North Melbourne taking on GWS. Now, so you've got the advantage of knowing what the topic is, so you've probably got them all in your head. It gets sprung on me.
And that's the big skill. Yeah, you should get this one. Except I think he's the only one. We're going to have to share him.
That means it's someone obvious that...
someone who's playing in the game. He's had a good year too.
Okay, go, don't. Who's Arsenal playing? Because someone's tipped Graham Ricks. All right.
Michael Ricks with the St Kilda Ruckman.
Lockie Ash, fine.
Correct. Yep, that's the only one I could think of.
And thank you to Elle and Robin for that one.
Yeah, he's a good player, Lockie Ash.
Matt Campbell. Matt, I don't think you're across the rules of this game. Laidley is 7 letters and Katic is 6. And the wrong sport. But apart from that, pretty close. Okay, so we're both tipping GWS.
Yes.
Next game is Sunday night, 7:20 p.m. By the way, we are going to, in fact, I'm just springing this on you guys. We are going to do the podcast Sunday evening.
Yep.
But it's going to be a late one because that game won't finish until about 10 o'clock. So the Sunday review podcast will be up quite late. West Coast taking on Richmond at Optus Stadium, 7:20 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Oh, come on.
Lee.
Yeah, for the general.
Yeah, Mark Lee. Yeah.
Okay. I was going to go for ex-Saint Stephen Ray, but I've changed my mind.
Okay. Why?
Because I'm going for Thompson Dow.
Why?
Why what?
Has he played yet? Oh, he has played, hasn't he? Thompson
He's been delisted.
But he did play senior football.
Yeah, Thompson Dow, Paddy's brother.
Yeah, and if you're tipping West Coast Finey, who would you be tipping? The obvious one there.
I hadn't thought of West Coast.
He's playing in the game.
Yo.
Correct. Robert Rice has got a good Richmond one. Matt D.
Matt Day, yeah, it's very good.
D is the pronunciation.
D, yes. Okay.
And Ronnie Isco has gone with Cox. Did Richmond have a Cox? Did Doug? Hang on, Doug Cox never went and played at Richmond, did he?
No, they claimed him, of course.
Yeah. Only played about 2 games for Essendon too. Matt, what are you smoking? Matt's gone Stuart McGill. All right, so yeah, a few and Tim May,
we got May, Brett Lee, and Stuart Law.
By the way, Matt, can you just let us know? Is this Bubble Cheeks, Matt Campbell, we're talking about, former SEN colleague, or is it it's a fairly common name?
Yeah, no, really different one.
All right, final game is the Big Freeze on Monday.
Yep.
Between Barry Day. There's another one. He didn't play for West Coast or Richmond.
No.
Played for Essendon and Collingwood.
Yep.
All right. Melbourne and Collingwood at the SCG, 3:20 p.m. Monday afternoon. Big Freeze. Great cause. Of course, all Channel 7 seem to care about the slide, but there is actually a game of football being played as well.
Yeah.
How
many times did we hear that Ray Chamberlain's going down it?
Oh, is he?
Yep.
I know he is, and I know Abby Holmes is as well.
Yep.
and I don't care. Who else is coaches dressed up as whatever? I saw Fox had a promotion with all their celebrities with beanies
Pardon me.
on them. Sorry, am I keeping you up?
It is late.
All right. McLaughlin. What? Oh, Gil McLaughlin's going down the side. Ho, 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 ho. That'll be fun. All right, so final game, Melbourne
So Kenneth
Collingwood.
Luke never would have gone down the slide.
No, you wouldn't.
Lacks dignity.
All right, I am. All right, who are we tipping here?
Who's they? No, I've got a good one for the big freeze.
Okay, I'm giving you my tip. I'm tipping Adam Uze.
Okay. I'm tipping Nigel Cole.
Oh, KOL. Yeah, Geelong and Melbourne. Yeah, no, good get. Good get. And have we got any L? Cox, father of the future Norwich winner, correct? Daryl Cox, played for Fitzroy as well.
And Brisbane.
And Brisbane. And once dislocated his elbow right in front of me at the Junction Oval. And it's image seared on my subconscious. It was
What do you mean,
horrible.
father of the Norwich winner?
Future Norwich winner. Nick Cox.
Yeah, I don't think it's called the Norwich. Norwich.
Oh, yeah, it's not. It's called
The Norwich.
NAB. It's called the State Bank
Yeah,
Rising
yeah,
Star. Oh, sorry, I just found another question that someone sent through. Round 3. Hang on, try. Round 8, 1974. Do you guys think how many weeks do you think Stephen Parsons will get out of the Windy Hill Brawl? I don't know, but he'll still be a 17-year-old who looks like he's 30.
Yeah, he ended up at St Kilda, but never played a senior game.
A long career with Brunswick in the VFA.
Yeah. Big lad, lump lad.
Matt Campbell now tipping Daryl Summers, just lost the plot, and Dickie Mead.
Daryl Summers.
That's quite funny, Matt. You didn't tell us if it was the Matt Campbell or a inferior substitute. Ian Lowe says super coach, like that one. Yeah, of course he played for Footscray and then Collingwood.
Collingwood, yep.
Part of that ill-fated 1980 grand final. L reckons it's the Ansett Rising Star. No, you're getting that mixed up with the Ardith Cup, L.
Graham Bucks played for Fitzroy, didn't he?
Graham Bucks, no, Collingwood. Collingwood and Preston.
And he played for Fitzroy.
Graham Bucks, BUX.
Yeah, played for Fitzroy as well, didn't he? And Fitzroy.
I don't know, Damien can look it up. Ernie Hug.
2 Gs or 1 G?
No, it's 2 Gs. He's right.
Thomas Bugg.
Matt Campbell says, do you blokes make these listenable after the fact? No, it goes out like this, Matt. What we try and do is drive the audience down to 0 and just see how many people are left
does he think it's not listenable? If he thinks it's not listenable, stop sending through things like Cattage and then Daryl Summers.
Well, in fairness to Matt, I don't have to read them out, but I'm sort of at that past caring stage now. All right, we're going to wrap it up.
Can I ask you an incredibly difficult question?
As long as I can answer. Oh. Yeah, all right.
All right, look.
If it's incredibly difficult, I won't get it.
No, you'll get. Here's the thing. We all know that Carlton have recruited a huge number of players from GWS.
Yep.
12 in total, if you count Pickett, who never played a game at GWS.
Yep.
But there's only been 3 players go back the other way from Carlton to GWS, and that doesn't include Sam Jacobs, who played for Adelaide in between. Now, I'll tell you this about the 3 players. If you get 1, it's very good. If you get 2, you are a frigging genius. And if you get 3, without looking anything up, I'll eat my hat.
See, now I want to get it, and it's just I'm going to sit here for 10 minutes.
Well, our producer Damon barracks for Carlton, and he thinks he knows two of them.
Just quickly, this is important. Matthew Price reckons community footy back next weekend, the Community Cup. I hope someone contacts me about that because I'm supposed to award the medal.
Yeah, it's named after your brother.
Yeah, correct. The Steve Connolly medal. All right, I've definitely got one.
Yep.
Dylan Buckley.
Yep, that's correct. Two more.
Oh yeah, I've got it. What's his face? Satantara Halpin.
That's two.
I can picture the third one.
Damon, do you know the third one? That is correct.
Brett Thornton. I would have got that, Damon. But would you have got Brett Thornton with just one T in Brett?
Yeah, 1-2.
What is it about that?
And just one game for GWS.
In fact, what is it about that? What happened? What happened to David Cunningham's parents? Why doesn't he have two N's in Cunningham? What's that about? And Ben Matthews, he used to play at Sydney. Only one team, Matthews. Okay, we've jumped the shark here. We're going. Thanks for your company. Good fun tonight. We had some good discussion too. And
do you know what I learned tonight on Mastermind?
Can I just finish what I was saying?
Well, no, this is important. On Mastermind, do you know what I learned tonight?
What?
The movie Mrs. Doubtfire is blamed on a book, and the author of that book, I'm back, the author of that book, do you know what her surname is?
No, but I want to know why your phone went off then again.
10% left now.
Okay. So why does it go off just because the charge is dropping down?
Well, it just says 20% or 10%. Just notification.
Right, okay. Well, you could charge it to 100 before we do the show.
Because I love Mrs. Doubtfire. The name's Doubtfire. Iphigenia Doubtfire. I think all children should do the right amount of homework. Anyway, etc., etc.
So, sorry, what's the question?
Well, it's based on a book by an author, a female author.
Yeah.
With the surname Fine. It's on a book based on a book by Anne Fine.
Great.
It is great.
That's good. That's great.
Because you get Connollys everywhere. I don't get many fines.
There's not many.
Well, I do if I get parking fines.
There's a few Connollys in Ireland. I don't know if there's that many here.
Oh, there's, what's his name? Chris Connolly. And there's just Connollys pop up every now and then.
Not too many Rowans either.
Wasn't in the name of the father a Connolly?
No, probably. I don't know. When I went to Dublin, it was sort of like Smith. I had something incredibly witty and important to say there, and now I've forgotten
it. I'll wait.
Nah, doesn't matter. No, we should go. What was it? No, it's gone. I was just going to say, if we ever show our face in the AFL headquarters or a press box again, we're not going to be met in a very friendly manner by too many people. There's a comment about your story, Finey. What does it say?
Which story?
What's the relevance, Finey?
Which story?
Well, he was explaining how there's not many fines around. So when you hear about someone else called Fine, it's very fine.
It's exciting. I thought of that because there's a Steve Connolly medal, and your brother was, a great guitarist. That's already one famous Connolly on top of yourself.
Yeah. Anyway, all right, we're done. Danny Kaye's...
Billy Connolly?
Oh, Danny Kaye's wife, who wrote lyrics, was named Fine.
Really? Thank goodness there's a couple out there.
Danny Kaye was Jewish, wasn't
he? Yeah.
Yeah.
I always thought if Darren Parkin had a daughter who married one of my sons and they had a hyphenated surname, the surname would be...
That's good. That is good. An appropriate note to finish on. Thanks for your company, everyone. I forgot to give if there's anyone still watching, amazingly, there's 55 of you. Now, among you 55, who hasn't become a Footyology patron? Come on, we need to keep this operation ticking over. I'm not rolling buck naked in cash, fortunately for the visuals. We do need money to support this business. So have a look at the link. Damon's just posted it up there. $7 Australian a month is all we're asking. Look, the stuff's there free. You can rip us off and plunder our resources for nothing if you're a complete bastard. But if you want to actually help us survive, give generously. $7 a month is all we're asking, and that will help sustain the operation and pay people like our wonderful producer, Damon Jackman, and pay Damon Danger money to produce Finey's end of this video cast because he's always moving around. No,
Yeah, I'm going to go. I'm so tired.
Okay, all right. But don't go before we actually finish. All right, anyway, you get the drift. If you can kick in, it would be very much appreciated. And we'll give you a special shout out next week. All right, Matt's part of the thing. Good on you, Matt. We'll read out some more of your hilarious puns. All right, Matthew Price, proud to be a Patreon. Love your work. Eric Ellis. G'day, Eric. Eric, a former colleague of mine on the Sun News Pictorial Finey. The only man ever to sub the race results in 5 point. That's what it was called. And on his last evening on the job, sign off, results compiled by Eric Ellis. It was one of the great moments in cadet journalism history.
That's good.
Good to see you, Eric. Shoot us an email. We'll have a chat. All right, we'll be back late Sunday evening with the bulk of round 13 reviewed on the audio podcast. Check out our special podcast interview with Mick Warner because it really is a good listen. And we'll catch you later. Have a good weekend.